Good morning, everyone. I'm coming to you again from outside of Stirling, and I wanted to carry on talking about wilderness, about desolate places. And in the last video, I shared about how the desolate place was a place of worship, of preparing your heart, and a place where where Jesus brought heaven to earth, where he prepared himself for bringing heaven to earth. He went out into the places that had been cursed in the preparation to bring the recapitulation from death. And today I want to go back to Exodus 8, which is actually what I was reading this morning, but it picks up on this theme once again. It's after the fourth plague, the plague of flies. Pharaoh is beginning to get the idea that he can't handle this problem on his own. So in verse 26 of chapter 8, Pharaoh says, he called Moses and Aaron and said, "Go sacrifice to your God in the land." I mean, that's the first thing. I believe that we're in a season where the humble are being exalted, where we can see this, a few concrete examples in our government. The number of Christians that have been elected into Parliament, the number of appointments that have been made strategically from people who have quietly got on with serving people, the way that politics is supposed to work, the way that government is supposed to work, have now found themselves in positions of leadership. However, the spirit of Pharaoh works in two different directions. At the beginning of the book of Exodus, Pharaoh pays for Jochebed, that's the mother of Moses, to look after her own baby. A bizarre twist of government that moves from evil and the murder of infants to the same government paying the mother to look after her own infant. That's one way in which government can serve the purposes of the kingdom, but it can also be a very tricky place, and that's what happens in this passage. Verse 25, go and sacrifice to your God in the land. The state, the power, can turn around and say, look, we can't handle this on our own. Maybe there's some truth in what you've been saying all along. You can go and sacrifice to your God in the land. So the Pharaoh is effectively saying, you can do what it takes within the bounds of my purview. So I will put limits on what it is that you need to do within the bounds of my authority. Moses says, very wisely, it would not be right to do so, for it would be sacrificing the abomination of the Egyptians to the Lord our God. If we sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians before our eyes, will they not stone us? So rather than just tell the truth, he doesn't compromise the truth. He gives a reason to the state, to the government, why he can't do it their way, because they won't like it. And therefore he can stay true to the truth. Interesting at this point, what was an abomination? Well, first of all, our worship stinks to the world. The way we sacrifice, lay our lives down for him, the way we serve other people, not for ourselves, but for kingdom and for others, that stinks to the world. And we have to understand that the ways of the cross are foolishness to those who are perishing. But there's also a more specific thing going on here. If you rewind back to the book earlier in the book of Genesis, in the story of Joseph, Joseph is the Pharaoh. His brothers return to him. The tables turn, and the brothers of Israel, the sons of Israel, the brothers of Joseph, have to sit on a different table because shepherds are an abomination to the Egyptians. Could it be that the sacrifice of the lamb is what is so distasteful to the spirit of Pharaoh, to the spirit of Egypt? Rather, Moses says we have to go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God as he commands us. Of course, 3 days, we don't have to go there, but it speaks so So clearly of death, burial and resurrection and transformation. And in Exodus 15, when they turn the bitter waters sweet, again, they've gone out 3 days into the wilderness. This is the number of transformation, if you like. It's a picture of worship. It was far enough away to get out of the world and for the world to get out of them, so they could then worship God without all those distractions. It's very clearly different to what Pharaoh said when he said, you can worship the Lord in my land, in my boundaries, on my terms. Moses says we have to go 3 days journey into the wilderness. Pharaoh said, I will let you go, as if it was up to him, because the Lord had already commanded that he let the people go. But he says, I will let you go, that you may sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness, only don't go very far. So even when the worship of the believers, the worship of the saints, even when that is outside of his purview, he still tries to set a limit on it. That's a warning for all of us, but it's especially a warning in a season like this where people are beginning to get governmental authority in the state, that the Pharaoh will say to you, you can worship your God because it's helping me, but don't go too far. Stay within the bounds of my purview. But we have to do like Moses and Aaron did and go the whole 9 yards, so to speak, to go the whole 3 days into the desert, irrespective of what else is said. Notice the last part of verse 28. Pharaoh says, intercede for me. There you have the answer. Why he's allowing them is because he personally wants to benefit from their intercession. He wants to benefit from their prayers. However illegitimate that request was, Moses still does it, and he does go out, and they do pray that the flies depart. But he's bold enough to say to Pharaoh, but don't cheat us again. You've done it before. God said, let his people go. Let his people go. And Pharaoh hardens his heart. So if we compromise with the spirit of Egypt, with Pharaoh, we will end up on the wrong side of history. We will find ourselves cheated because Pharaoh won't change his mind. He will harden his heart. Rather, like in the middle there, we have to find a way, we have to find the language that explains why we can't capitulate, because it's not in their interests. It's not it's not politically expedient for them, because they will find it detestable. And then we can also speak the truth in love.